Yeah, they're sitting in good shape, certainly. And what they want is to control their own destiny.
You bet.
And that's what they can do right now with where they are and what they've got left.
So it's going to be really interesting because you're the math guru, you're the professor, is as these next few weeks come and go, tie breaks, difficult schedules, we'll get into all of that, but things are still log jammed for many of the coveted slots.
Yeah, they are. And you know, that third and fourth and fifth and sixth
Yep.
are big.
ESPN's finest. Charlie, welcome to the show.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's actually an honor because you two are kind of legendary in your own right. So
Wow.
this
In our
is
own minds.
Yeah, God bless you. Okay, before we get into X's and O's and Rubik's cubing and all that, for God's sake, Charlie, how did you get started? How does one become a bracketologist? How the heck and when the heck did this get started?
you know what? It's been over 20 years now, which is kind of crazy to say out loud. But it hasn't been as prominent as it is these days. So the growth of the game has sort of dragged me along with it, and I'm very appreciative of that. It started. Well, there's a long version of this story I could tell, so I will try to give you the Cliff Notes version. Uh, I was working with Joe Lenardi. The tournament is the thing. It would be great if we could subsidize the preseason book with one that would just be the tournament. Well, you had to kind of forecast the tournament. So he got digging in, he studied it, and he essentially concocted this whole thing of bracketology. Fast forward a few years, and at this point, he had started his own thing that ESPN came in and bought and hired him. And then they decided a few years after that they wanted to add women's content and asked him if he would do it. And he said, no, but I've got a guy. You're looking at said guy. So I was very much engrossed in women's basketball. So when ESPN called to kind of feel me out, and I said, I would love to do something like that. And here we are, fast forward now 20, I think it's 2 years now. I think this is the 22nd year, and going strong and loving every minute of it for all 22 of those years.
When you look at the WCC and, you know, Portland and what they're doing this year, Gonzaga and maybe Washington State, where do you see them coming in when you start thinking about bracketology?
Well, this is usually a league that gives us the potential for a couple of teams. I don't think it's going to be possible this year. I think that the metrics just aren't as friendly. Gonzaga got out to such a tough start. They're usually the bell cow of the conference, and they're, but last year, for instance, is a perfect example. We're seeing the differences in what 2 seasons can provide for a conference the size of the WCC. You have a team that was top 16 worthy last year, so certainly they were getting in the tournament, and it was they did the league a favor by losing in the championship game of the conference tournament. Allowed them to get 2 teams in. This year, it's going to be kind of a one and done. I look, because I know the history of this league. I do look very hard and see if is there anything I'm missing. And the numbers just aren't there. The non-conference performance just wasn't there. So I think we're going to get 1 team in, and whoever wins that conference tournament in my hometown, Las Vegas. I always love going to the championship game if I can somehow swing my schedule. It's such a great event. It's such a fun championship game. It has been for years. I've always really enjoyed it. So I try to get back, whatever my travels took me over that weekend, to get back for those. If I can get back for the semis and then the final, certainly it's always a great time.
Well, last year was a classic. You know, you mentioned Gonzaga losing in the finals to benefit the league. I'm going to track you back and say Gonzaga lost, but Portland beat them. So let's talk about the Pilots and what they did last year, that Las Vegas magic that they've got rocking and rolling right now. That I thought was one heck of a story. And yeah, so thanks to the Pilots, 2-bid league last year.
It was great. That game was phenomenal. I had Ann, you were there too, right? You were doing play-by-play. I was sitting right across the court from you.
I remember.
And just taking it all in. And it was, like I said, it's always a great atmosphere. Some of the schools, the upper echelon of the league, they travel pretty well. They bring a nice crowd, even though it's an afternoon game in Vegas, which is a little bit unusual for a championship game, but it's still a good crowd. It's a good atmosphere. And last year's game, and there have been other games too in recent vintage that have been maybe not quite as good as last year's, but they've been nearly that good. Where Gonzaga's been on the ropes. Back when BYU was in the league, that was a rivalry for sure. That we always seem to get that championship game, or at least a number of years we got that championship game, and those were always close. And in those years, BYU's program was at a higher level than it is now. And even though BYU is now in the Big 12, and we could go into that championship game sometimes saying, well, both these teams are getting in anyway. So it's got a great little history here. And last year's game was sort of a cherry on top of that historical Sunday.
Charlie, do you see a WCC team, wherever you see them seated, doing some damage maybe in the first or second round this year?
Well, I am pretty curious about what Gonzaga can maybe do now that they seem a little bit there's a lot of stuff going on with losing the starters, their coach being sick. There's a lot of stuff going on there. And now everybody seems to kind of be settled. And unfortunately, the nature of, if you want to call it mid-major conferences, is once you get past December, they really don't have an opportunity to show and show the growth that they have had, because they're only playing teams in the league. And if the league isn't, especially the bottom half of the league isn't there, then they're not creating any measurables. But so because of that, I think Gonzaga maybe a touch of a mystery as to what they are now versus the rest of the country. So I am curious to see maybe what can happen there. And Portland's had a great season, and I think they're capable too. I see kind of a 13 seed. That's why I have Gonzaga right now is the leader of the league right now. And that puts you in a game where you're going to be playing on somebody else's home floor, but it's not out of the realm of possibility. I think if things have come together the way I think we all think they have, at least for Gonzaga, and giving Portland a chance to showcase what they are, I certainly think it's a possible first round type upset. Home court advantage for the top 16. I don't have a problem. I still think it's kind of a good thing, but people often will just say that it feels like it's unfair. But upsets have happened in those games. It's not an untenable situation for the lower seed. It's not ideal necessarily for them, but it's doable. And if you catch the right team and it's the right matchup, then sure, I could see either team pulling a surprise in that first round.
All right, man. What we look forward to is in the next few weeks, just trying to get into your head and figuring out what the heck you're thinking and following along. And then we're going to fast forward to the WCC tournament, and Mary and I very much look forward to seeing you there. I hope your schedule allows you to pop in and sit across the court, because, man, you were there big as Dallas last year.
No, it's a lot of fun. Like I said, I try to.
Yep.
And I think most years it works out. It kind of brings me back home after I've usually spent a week away at maybe the SEC tournament, and then some time at Bristol, the ESPN headquarters, doing some wrap-ups and some analysis along the what does this mean and what does that mean. And then I get to kind of come home and slide right over to the Orleans and check out that championship game.
Love it, man. Thank you so much for taking the time, Charlie Creme. You're a big timer, man, and we love having you on the show. Thank you for taking time out.
You're good for my ego. I appreciate that.
Anytime. Have we had some great guests today or what? Big day, great day. And speaking of the word big, B-I-double-G, some big games coming up. Walk us through it.
Well, for me, I look at the totality. We've got 2 weeks left. Some teams have 3, some teams have 4 left. Gonzaga looks in great shape. They've got the tiebreaker over Portland. Portland's got the tiebreaker over number 3, Washington State. So for me, when I look at the standings and I look at the upcoming games, it's really about that battle for 3rd and 4th and 5th and 6th. And you know why that's important? Because of the seeding and how many games it's going to take. We just talked to Charlie Creme, and we know what it takes to get to the NCAA tournament. You got to win the tournament. If you're 5 or 6, you have to win 4 games. If you can manage that 3rd or 4th spot, and you have to win 3 games. It is a huge difference. So highly motivated there. Washington State is in great shape. They control their own destiny. That's what you want in life when you're a basketball coach and a basketball team. Oregon State, USF, St. Mary's, all tied at 9-7. Where do these folks, end up finishing? St. Mary's and USF, without a doubt, have the toughest remaining schedules this weekend. Super important for them. And USF at Washington State on Thursday, and St. Mary's at Washington State on Saturday. Saturday, to me, are two huge games for both programs.
So all of the jockeying for position is in place. And to your point, while the top two teams look pretty darn good, and they've done a great job solidifying those top two places, everything else, Washington State, everything else is just going to be the Wild West, as we've said.
Exactly right. But then you throw a red hot team like San Diego into the mix, and are they like a bowling ball and just start knocking people off? And I mean, really, this time of year, anything is possible. You get some great performances and upsets start happening. And you want to be in Washington State's position. You're a game and a half up in the standings, and you just want to hang tight and stay solid in that third or fourth position. But the battle for fourth, between those three schools, it's on, man. I mean, and you've got to win basketball games, and you can sit and try to figure out who's got the advantage and who's this and what's going on. All you can do is go to practice every day, take care of your business. But I don't think we could ask for anything more as far as a competitive end to this season. And Charlie spoke about Gonzaga, a team that started 1-2, and the rip that they have gone on and how they've been able to just kind of get themselves together. The amazing play of Vonnie Ejim just sort of leading the way, a freshman point guard, and what they've been able to accomplish. Portland, the survival of winning two close games this past weekend and be able to stay the past week and be able to stay in that 2 spot. There's just a lot of great games to watch, and we're all going to be scoreboard watching.
You're reading my mind. We are going to be thumbing through our phones and our devices and just checking scores left and right, just the way we like it as we really hit the stretch run. Okay, Mary Murphy, that's going to do it for Points in the Paint. As always, thanks for breaking things down, and thanks to all of you for tuning in. Love having you on board. All right, we'll be back next week. Set your watches. Until then, be safe, be healthy, and thanks again for joining us.